Hey everybody, it's Open World Chat again. How you doing? I'm John Odom. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with Mark Card. Mark, say howdy.
Howdy, and I'm the other host.
Oh right, I made it sound like you were the guest.
No, and I wasn't even thinking that. I just, that's like uh, good evening. Francisco Franco is still dead.
There you go, and thanks for that. So today we're getting geeky in a different way. There's a lot of sort of nerd topics out there, and we tend to live in the sort of art, comics, movies, stuff like that. We haven't gotten into music yet. We should do that. But anyway,
Yeah, we
that's
can definitely
that's
do that.
right. Geek music. We'll have a whole bunch of Devo or something. But
Oh, lots of
anyway,
EDM.
but we're going to do some talking about a topic that really involves hacking in a lot of this here. I mean, it totally does. We're talking about election security. Just for informational purposes in this conversation, I am a couple things. I'm an election administrator, number one, and I have been for 13 years. So I run the election in my town. I'm also a certified ethical hacker. So I have some hacking experience. It's really academic for me because I haven't been
Yeah, I
able
didn't
to.
know that. That's super cool.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, that
No, I
was
had no
part of why I
idea.
wanted to talk about this. Is
That's
it's a
great.
it's a penetration testing certification. And what I've learned since getting it, and I say I don't get to practice much except occasionally in sandboxes, but it's only the beginning of wisdom. It's amazing how I have learned that I don't know anything. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of certified ethical hackers out there making a whole lot of money when they're probably like me and don't really know anything. Although at least they get practice.
Yeah. Well, plus you're emphasizing the ethical part.
Right. White hat. White
And
hat. I don't even wear a
I don't
hat
think
anymore.
everybody's doing that when they get that kind of certification.
Well, I don't know. I'd argue with that, but that's a sort of a different story. So, election security. When somebody says election security, where do you go? Do you go physical? Do you go cyber? What do you think of? And do you get scared?
I don't really think of cyber, but that's just because I don't really have that much of a connection to it. Um, I think mostly about physical security when we talk about um, at election sites, during the election. I think a lot about where do they store ballots, how are ballots collected.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I'm more a guy who talks about in my training the demographics of elections, the consequences of elections, the political wrangling that precedes and then uh, comes after elections. So honestly, I don't think that much about election security. One thing I understand is that, let me just tell you, uh, private businesses would love to have the relationship between risk and election security that governments do. Uh,
You'd be surprised,
well,
honestly, how much our elections are run by private business.
oh no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this, and you're right, I would be surprised by that. But what I'm saying is, so let's look at fraud. Um, Republicans are talking a great deal about election security and how our electoral system is really super insecure and how people are out there committing fraud and undocumented workers, people they would call illegal, are voting in mass. And let's look at my home state, Texas. The Attorney General did a study on vote fraud in Texas a few years ago, and in 16 million votes, he found 11 anomalies. Not Now, this is in-person fraud.
Sure.
He found 11 anomalies, none of which, none of which uh, would have enough evidence that something illegal happened, that some kind of fraud happened at all. They were only anomalies. None could be prosecuted none would result in a prosecution, much less in a conviction.
Mm.
And so basically, uh, that means in terms of in-person fraud, the likelihood of fraud, I mean, the safety of Texas elections is this example, even by the most strict ideas of, uh, there are people out there voting en masse illegally. If you do the math, 11 anomalies out of 16 million that means uh, the margin of error is 0.000068%, which means that electoral systems, at least in protection of in-person fraud in Texas, are 99.99931% safe.
Mhm. This
Yeah.
it's interesting. These are really important numbers to say, really important. And they're really important for the rest of our conversation because this conversation is going to get a little more nuanced than I think most conversations like this here because and let me tell you why here in my own experience. I'm a regular participant at DEF CON, the largest hacker
Mhm.
conference in the world, at their voting village. Voting Village is set up by a few different people. Anyways, the star is a guy named Hari Hursty, and what is done there, other than speeches about election security with an emphasis towards cyber, obviously, but not exclusively. It's a policy village too, but we're hacking voting machines
Yeah.
and we're doing it. And so, in the course of doing it, we are demonstrating weaknesses.
Yeah.
So, what we get is a lot of accusations about basically supporting the right in all their, allegations that the vote is insecure. And the whole idea here is we're penetration testing.
Sure. Yeah.
When we
Right.
test something and it in some they never 100% fail, but there is a failure, there's a weakness, it gets patched.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the companies that produce this these products, these machines, oh my God, they used to hate us.
Oh, I'm
They
sure
would
they
send
did.
people look. They did, but now the conversation is so important. It's been completely mainstreamed. Some of the speakers you have show up at Voting Village at DEF CON are secretaries of state from
Yeah.
different states. It has been completely recognized as an important part of guaranteeing or election security. The mantra of penetration testers is you never say anything's unhackable, but damn it, we get pretty damn close with our elections.
And that's the important thing. I think people think, well, because it's electronic, it's riddled with holes.
Mm-mm, not
And
riddled, but it
I
has them.
think that I think that's possible, but I don't think it's very likely.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
one of the things that really makes me angry about all these electoral fraud allegations is it it impugns the integrity of everyone involved in elections.
I think you're right. I think you're right. It
It, it's
ignores the
it
fact that the last two elections we have been the most secure in history.
and people don't understand this. They don't understand that when you say, "Oh, illegal aliens are out voting by millions," there are people, and the reason I come to this from a very personal perspective. My mother, for years, even before women could have their own credit cards or bank accounts or loans, was an election judge.
Hmm.
And my mother was a pioneer, a social pioneer in many, many ways at the community level. Uh, but she was committed to the security of elections. And by God, she worked really hard at making sure everybody's vote counted.
Right.
And there are millions of people at the state and community level who are absolutely committed to election security. And they're from all walks of life, they are from all political parties, and they are uh, stone pillars of election security.
Hmm.
And if you're going to sit here and impugn these people as not caring about their jobs or not doing their jobs, you do a disservice to everybody in the country
Wow.
because people are committed to this at the most basic level. When you're an election judge, they pay you $45 for a whole day's worth of dealing with grumpy voters.
And this is in which state? Because it's, I know it
It's in
varies.
Texas,
It is in Texas. Okay.
a red state.
Hmm.
You are trained, and then you go and you watch the polls and you make sure everybody has proper ID. And if they don't, you make sure everybody gets a provisional ballot.
Hmm.
And I think one of the problems here is that people have abandoned the idea that elections should be secure for everyone. And I think among a lot of Republican officials and many Republican rank and file, they believe that elections are that Democrats are stealing elections,
Hmm.
and that so it's okay for them to do the same thing.
It's incredible that that story took, that all these folks, all these mainstream folks on the right really honestly believe that. And it's frustrating because fraud is not the problem. As you say, maybe there's four out there. The problem is voter turnout.
That's
And
exactly right.
yeah. And so, they exist on a continuum, really. The more you lean towards turnout, theoretically, the more, you open things up and you could have more fraud. The more you tighten down on fraud, then the more you're going to see less turnout. I mean, that's the sort of spectrum, but where are we at right now? There's virtually no fraud, which means the equation is off. And it's off in the side of we're not getting and we're not making elections free enough for people to come and vote. We don't have that. As an election administrator, listen, if there was a fraud problem, election administrators like me would be the first ones to
Yeah,
step up and say, look, there's an issue here. Let's tighten things up. But
yeah,
there
that's
isn't.
right.
So
Yeah,
we're like, let's open it up and make it as inclusive as possible.
yeah, and the thing, there is something political going on here, and it's evidence based.
Hmm.
And the evidence is this: the bigger turnout there is, the less likely Republicans win elections.
No. Yeah.
And
There's
that is,
there's a little bit of a bump in that, but uh but I agree completely. Yeah.
but that is an empirical fact
Hmm.
in general. Now, we're not talking about every election, at every level of government,
Right. That's all I meant. Yeah.
but in general, big turnout means Democrats win by a big margin
Right.
in
Right.
terms of number of elections. If Democrats vote, it's very difficult for Republicans to win at any level, state, local, federal. It's just difficult. This is part of the political thing going on here.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons why some people in the Republican Party cry foul. They know if voting is made easier, if registration is made easier, if you make the system more democratic, they will lose.
Hmm.
And look, this is just math. There's nothing sinister about this empirical fact. And the fact is, in the population, when you poll about political attitudes, Republican ideas, Republican ideology, and this was even before this crazy transformation of the last 15 years, even before that, Republicans are a minority party, a numerical minority party.
Yeah, I think they're more even now, but I still think
They're
what you say is
slightly
true.
more even,
Hmm.
but where they are more even is people who actually turn out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there are in some Republican officials concerted, purposeful efforts
Hmm.
to restrict voting because they will lose if they don't.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
And
absolutely.
so this
Voter suppression is something that happens both at the policy level and the just electoral level, just evil
That's exactly right. And I'll give you a
campaigns.
great example. The first Texas voter ID law was so restrictive that even the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals at the Fifth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals said this law denies at least, and they emphasized in the ruling, at least 40,000 people from their constitutionally defined voting rights.
Mhm.
At least. And who were they all?
No, all Democrats.
Not just all Democrats, but
Oh, they were
people of color,
they were all brown people, right? Of course.
people of color,
Hmm.
uh, older voters.
Which is
Uh,
interesting because
yeah,
older voters historically vote more conservatively. So
that's
they were
right.
shooting themselves in the foot a little bit there.
That's right. So people of color, older voters, the poor,
Hmm.
and
Again, disproportionately people of color.
right, and young people.
Yeah.
Now,
Also,
of those four groups, only one of them is noticeably conservative,
right.
and that's old people. And so, if the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, people who are not liberal in any way whatsoever, are telling you that your voter ID law denies a significant portion of people, and those of us who are Democratic advocates would say one is an inexcusable number of people. Uh,
Right. Which we'll get back to that on a, well,
um,
anyways.
anyway, if they're telling you that this is a problem, this is real. Voter suppression is real.
Mhm.
It's not a myth, it's a fact, and it's based on a fantasy idea that people who are not American citizens are voting, and that's just not true. Empirically, we know that is not true.
Well, and it's not just policy. That's where the policy is. But
Right.
individual campaigns or really peripherally attached groups to campaigns actively work to suppress the vote. And
Yeah.
an example you see just more and more around the states are simple, cheap, old fashioned robocalls
Yeah.
where misinformation is passed to a targeted swath of sometimes it's not targeted, but saying things like don't come to the polls, that there's been a bomb threat, or the election date has been changed, or the polling place has been changed.
One of my
This is a
what,
thing now, and it's happening more and more. You just Google that, and you get all
yeah.
all kinds of headlines. So that's just, and I could name other examples. There are certainly examples where somebody could hack and deface a Secretary of State website to put false information up there.
Yeah, one of
But
my favorites was the robocalls that were going out and the posts on social media in the last two federal elections was, well, I voted for Trump and my ballot got flipped to Biden, or I voted for Trump and my ballot got flipped
God.
to Kamala Harris. No, it didn't. It didn't.
And let me tell you, as a hacker, when you talk about mischief, and I think the other group that we might want to talk about are advanced persistent threats, which are generally nation states.
Right.
Um, it's much, it's hard to imagine really flipping votes. What it's not as hard to imagine is just mischief, is
Yeah.
disruption. And that's a hacker's bread and butter is disruption. And those are the kinds of things that concern me. And I think I speak of that broadly, and I put uh, voter suppression in that category. But yeah, flipping votes, yeah, that's why they like to plant their conspiracy theories on like Dominion,
Yeah.
because the only thing they can imagine is if there's some program set up by some enemy of theirs at the corporate level to
Elon Musk.
come on.
This is the one that gets me. You've got there are statisticians out there and programmers out there saying Elon Musk stole the election. Well, he stole it, but he didn't have to. You didn't have to hack any election machines to steal it.
Right.
All you had to do was pay Trump $300 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this, so we had a little pre-show discussion about this, and this is to me is the ultimate voting hack, and that is using misinformation to flat out lie to people.
Yeah.
And this is not done on election day. This is done every day on social media. This was done every day for 30 years by Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
He lied to him. And to me, and you've heard me say this before, but to me, Rush Limbaugh is the second greatest fraud of the 20th century. The first, of course, is going to be supply side economics. The idea that you could grow the economy based on the ridiculous notion that the rich would share their wealth, that's just a giant fraud. And Americans bought into it because they believe one day they're going to be that wealthy.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're not going to get rich. You're not going to be Elon Musk. It's not going to happen.
Right.
But and this is where in the election of 2016, the Russians succeeded beyond their wildest dreams.
Oh, yeah. I was about
And
to say the folks pushing this misinformation are the same advanced persistent threats who we have to worry about in terms of hacking.
yeah, North Korea, Russia, I'm sure there are tons of countries we don't even know who are
China
doing.
and Iran, Russia, Iran, and China are the big ones. North Korea a little less so lately, and China's a little different.
Yeah.
China likes to try and support candidates that are friendly to their agenda as opposed to pure disruption.
Well, that sounds something. But people should understand that one of the things that made the Russian Revolution so successful so quickly, and one of the things that made uh, the communist government able to control such a large country very quickly, relatively speaking, was the NKVD and then the KGB. They specialize in uh, in disinformation. Disinformation is the fundamental tool used by the KGB to destabilize governments, foreign governments. And well, let's see, what was Vladimir Putin's specialty, the thing that he trained in the most in the KGB?
Oh, I
Des
don't know his specialty.
Destabilizing foreign governments.
Oh, okay. That's the broad specialty of the KGB, right?
He was now, and see, people don't understand this. The Russians were better at it than anybody in the world, this kind of disinformation. I'll give you a couple of good examples. Uh, Stalin was a bank robber, and that's how he helped fund the Communist Party.
Hmm.
There is good evidence now that Stalin in his youth was also a member of the Russian Imperial Secret Police.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
that's interesting.
Um, there is also from the 1920s uh, a very famous KGB operation. Hold on, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I can't think of any famous KGB operations, so
Yeah,
you're way ahead of me.
um,
Checking the Google. Always check
yeah,
the
I'm checking
Google.
the Google. What is the name of it? Um,
Lost. You're lost in the Google now.
no, I'm not. I'm lost in my brain trying to think about what's the name of it. Anyway, I can't think of it now. It had a two-word name. So here's the way it worked. The way the communists infiltrated the leftover parts of the monarchy during the Russian Civil War was they created a group of people which funded and helped plan and execute operations against the communists, but they were all communists.
Interesting.
So one by one, they would go to these people who were important figures in the the white side, the imperial side, and say, we're working against the communists, please join our group. And then, of course, one by one, all of the white Russian leaders were executed.
Yeah, and that's white in quotes for those listening.
Yes, that's white, as in the white was an imperial color of the Russian Empire.
Right,
So when you look at the two sides in the Russian Civil War, this doesn't have anything to do with uh, ethnic or nationalist origin.
right.
Had the communists who were considered the Red Russians and the former Imperial Russians. What is the name of this group? It's killing me. It's very famous. Um, and I'm just old.
Two words, you said?
Yes, it's the
No,
something.
I don't know. Shit
Um,
show.
no, it's one of the most successful espionage operations in the history of Soviet espionage. Um, I
God,
can't
I
think
got
of
no
it.
idea. You're so outside
It's either the
my
group or
world.
it's not the group. That's something else. That was the funder of nationalist movements the Israeli used. What is that? It's not the committee. It's something like that. I can't remember what it is. I'll think of it at some point and then correct it later on down the line.
Hmm.
Um,
Stay tuned for a correction, folks.
this is the problem with Google. Google tends to look at only the most recent things which ever occurred, so it's really hard to um, uh,
It's because history doesn't matter anymore.
yeah, that's right, because uh,
It's
yeah.
all a simulation. The history is all simulated.
But anyway, the point is, the Republicans denied and denied and denied that the Russians had anything to do with interfering in the 2016 election. Well, yeah, here's the problem. The CIA, which is not known to be a group of really liberal people,
Yeah, not
the
not so
national,
democracy oriented.
yeah, the National Security Agency, yeah, not so democracy oriented. The Defense Intelligence Agency and about 20 other intelligence agencies came out and said, yeah, this election, the 2016 election, was massively influenced by the Russian government.
Hmm.
And you've got, and I think there are some non-state actors involved here too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are some large non-state actors. And if you want an example of a non-state actor for the audience, Al Qaeda was a non-state actor.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think there are plenty of non-state actors involved. Another good example of a
Something else
non-state,
you would refer to as an advanced persistent threat. They're not
yeah,
necessarily.
they are.
Advanced persistent threats are the ones who are in for the long haul. You know, they're
Yeah,
very sneaky, they have good resources, and they're not flying in there setting off virus alarms or,
no,
anomaly detectors. They are in for the long haul and they've got a lot of resources. And certainly, organizations like that, to the extent they are hacking, are considered APTs.
yeah, and they're dangerous as hell.
Hmm.
And it's because one, they're so good at it, and two, they are so subtle.
Hmm.
Anyway, you're far more an expert on this than I am, but
Well, not the history of it.
no,
Um,
maybe not the history of it, but uh,
well, I do it for
it,
a living.
yeah, in terms of what you're doing. Um,
Other than,
but
other
anyway,
than
so
that, I know the election laws of Vermont better than you do.
um,
Yes, and that's because I live in Vermont. If anyone was listening and thought that was completely random, it's where I work. That's where I
yeah.
sleep at night. It's where I eat. It's where I shit. It's all Vermont.
Yeah, the group that I'm talking about, and I'll stop talking about it in a second because it's boring. But the group that I'm talking about, I found out about through the PBS series Riley Ace of Spies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he completely disappears off the map. And some people say he's still alive. Some people say that this group caught him and executed him. But it's that's it. I thought of it. Ah, It's
Oh, you
called the
got it.
trust.
The
The
trust.
trust. The trust.
The trust.
It was a counterintelligence program designed to lure in all of the white Russian leaders, all of the former imperialist Russian leaders, uh, figure out how the organization was set up, and kill everybody who could make a difference. And it is one of the absolute, I mean, it is a textbook counterintelligence operation. And the Russians did it better than anybody.
Sure. That
So,
doesn't surprise me.
no, it doesn't me either. Um, but yeah, and it was all the brainchild of a guy, the founder of the KGB, a guy named Felix Dzerzhinsky,
Mm.
which is kind of interesting because he was Georgian, just like uh, Stalin was.
Hmm.
So you don't want to mess with the Georgians, I don't
Don't
think.
mess with the Georgians. Don't mess
Anyway,
with Texas or
but
Georgia.
yeah,
Both
that to me
Georgias.
that to me is the ultimate hack. It
Mm.
is influencing public opinion through open sources. It's not illegal, it's not expensive, it's not uh, difficult logistically. All you have to do is find people and get them to repeat the same stuff you want them to repeat. And boy, there's some really great examples of this. Uh, and some everyday household names that we know are involved in Russian disinformation. Recently in the news, we caught a whole bunch of people on Twitter and social media leaders who were being directly paid by the Russian government to follow Russian talking points.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
And
just make shit up sometimes.
yeah, and we
Um,
don't. Well, the most famous example of this is Tucker Carlson.
yeah. What a
That
stooge,
guy,
man.
that guy is
Jesus.
an unregistered agent of the Russian government.
Oh, yeah. As they say, an asset, just like
Yes.
our president. Yeesh.
Well, actually, I think Lenin coined the best term for these people, useful idiots.
Yeah, that's a good term.
And
That's a good term.
if you know anything about the kind of history of this, you understand that uh, you can be a useful idiot without knowing you're a useful idiot.
Well, I think that's I think that's fundamental to the concept,
Yeah,
really.
it is.
Um,
But people don't think of it that way. They think if you're a Russian agent, then you're paid, you're on the payroll, or
right.
they've got you compromised some way. Nah, all they have to do is convince you, can you please do this for us?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there's a whole lot of people who've bought into that hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, morons. Oh,
Well, I mean, this is kind of an indictment of our own educational system, which doesn't do a very good job of teaching people critical thinking.
that's true. I mean, it's an indictment, I think, of a lot of parts of our system, but that's a good
Oh,
one. That's
yeah.
one to start with right there. Is you're absolutely right.
But I think that's the ultimate election hack is
Hmm.
just using mass media to. And here's my favorite one. It's also the one that makes me the angriest. Before the 2016 election, you had these memes going around saying, "Oh, your vote doesn't count.
Hmm.
Your vote doesn't count because billionaires and big political people and mass media, uh, they just tell you your vote counts, but it doesn't really, so don't vote." Do you know the origin of that?
Of that kind of voter suppression?
Of that argument?
No, it seems like a basic one, but what are you thinking?
It's the Communist Party.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They would convince people there is no way that if voting were important, they wouldn't let you do it.
Well, let me tell you something to counter that, and that's
Yeah.
that I just wrapped up a recount for a city council race in my town that was won by 4 votes.
I'm telling you, people don't understand the one of the most uh, lasting contributions. And yes, it worked originally only for landed white men, but one of the most important innovations of the founding fathers was the emphasis on the individual vote. Yes, I know they did lots of things that were nominally anti-democratic, like the Senate being elected by state legislatures, but without their fundamental emphasis on individual liberty and the right to vote being undeniably connected, you don't get women's suffrage. You
Mhm.
don't get the Voting Rights Act. What I tell people is with the founding fathers, a couple of different things. One, they were the most revolutionary, the most radical liberal group in on the planet in the 18th century.
Mhm.
And I shock people by telling them the American political arrangement was the Iran, the Islamic fundamentalism of the 18th century, because it threatens every political, social, military, ideological, economic arrangement in the world.
Interesting.
And you
Interesting
have to
perspective.
understand when you look at the founding fathers, they were humans and they understood they were humans and they were making terrible decisions like slavery, like denying women suffrage, like driving the natives off their land. But they also understood the power of ideas, not ideology.
Sure.
And if you focus on their ideas, the idea of spreading political wealth throughout as many sectors of society as possible, the idea that political liberty was first and foremost the necessary and sufficient, uh, sorry, that economic liberty was the both necessary and sufficient condition for political liberty. If you understand the idea that pluralism, that government is designed to protect multiple viewpoints, uh, they are kings among political thinking, not political philosophy.
And that's the only part, because you're right. There were ideologies bouncing all over those rooms. A lot of reasons people felt that way, but that idea, I guess you could say that's the closest thing to a common ideology. So you could use that word in there. But yeah, there was no, overall common ideology for this. There were, yeah.
Yeah. As my in my undergraduate years, Dr. Nelson taught us that there's a big difference between political philosophy and political thought.
Hmm.
And the founders showed this, except Jefferson. Jefferson is a political philosopher
Sure.
because political philosophers try to define the best possible. They try to prescribe a political philosophy which is perfect. The rest of
Hmm.
the founders, Madison, Hamilton, Washington, John Jay, they wanted to create a system that worked.
Okay. I see where
And
you're going with it.
they had ideas behind it, but they were looking for things that work. Don't get me wrong, they did some terrible things. They are not perfect,
Sure.
but
Well, that's for sure.
they were horrible people in some ways. But if you focus on the ideas and not the ideology, those ideas, starting with the French Revolution, transform the planet.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, be as critical as you want to the founders. I'm all for it. You will find that the second most radical group of people in society are historians. The first are going to be artists, at least in my opinion. But um, let's get back to what we were talking about. I think both you and I agree that from a policy perspective and from a technical perspective, the election system is really safe.
Yeah, it really is. Now,
And it
let
is,
me, in that regard,
yeah,
let me completely fling the conversation. I'm going to flip it a couple ways. As you
please
might
do, please
guess, I'm
do.
going to flip it back to tech because that's me. But I'm going to flip it to increasing participation where we've been talking about suppressing participation.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's a big idea bouncing around out there. It's still really, it's not exclusively in tech circles because there are a bunch of pilot projects that have gone on. And I
yeah.
want to see what you think of the idea. And I have strong opinions on this. So
Okay.
I'm either going to agree with you or I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. You ready?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm all for that.
There's this idea of internet-based voting, particularly mobile devices. There's a lot of people talking about phone voting. And what do you think, basically? What do you think of
I
that?
haven't reached a conclusion on this because you're providing me evidence that internet systems are safe. On the other hand, look at banking.
That's an
Air,
interesting comparison for a number of reasons, but go ahead and tell me what you're thinking.
well, what I'm thinking of this is I'm in the middle of Spain and I get a text from my bank and it says, "Well, we've detected some false purchases here. Is
Mhm.
this what's going on?" And I said, "No." That so they canceled my card. I'm in a foreign country. Luckily, I was with some people who were Americans, and I could still use my phone to Zelle them stuff, but at least until the new card had been issued. So they would uh, pay for stuff, and then I would Zelle them the money. But and then guess what happens? I get home and I get this call, and it shows it's from the number of my bank, and they ask me about some more stuff. And I'd made an agreement with my bank. I said, "Hey, look, if there's anything like this, I want you to email me.
Mhm.
Don't send me a text. Don't call me. Email me." And then after I made that arrangement, what comes up? Oh, you got a text from your bank. And they said, "We've detected some more illegal purchases." And the funny thing is, it's always the same thing. It's always Apple.
Hmm.
At this Apple
That's
store, we
funny.
got this. Well, I said, "Okay, I have arrangements with my bank. Send me an email." "Oh, no, 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 we can take care of this now."
Mhm.
No, you know that if there's a problem with my account, you're supposed to email me.
Right.
Click.
Right. Now
So
think
these people,
about that. Think about that and apply it to voting. If you have a system where we're voting on the internet.
yeah,
We're all voting on the internet. It's great. We have the expectation. We feel good about it. And you start getting messages like that that say, click here to cast your vote. Next thing you know, well, first of all, you've been disenfranchised because you didn't
right,
vote. You've maybe compromised your computer or your mobile device. You've
right.
fallen prey to identity threat. This is a big reason, and there are several, but this is a major reason why internet voting is a bad idea.
See,
We
I'm with you.
cannot do it now.
That,
Well, no, let me say it's a good idea, but implementing it
yeah,
is a bad idea
yeah,
because
yeah,
we just don't have and this gets down to the fundamental way the internet works. We do not have enough safeguards in place, and we can't get them. People have come as close as you can imagine. And it is very different than banking because the banks have to know who you are,
yeah, yeah.
and anonymity has to play with voting online. But
Hmm.
whatever issues you may have with the technical, hackability of the system itself, and they're coming up with systems that are pretty close to unhackable.
Yeah,
The phone itself, the computer itself,
yeah,
the
yeah,
servers that hold this
yeah.
super system on the other end, they are they are vulnerable.
It's not a
And
software problem, it's a firmware problem.
well, it can be both.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but that's what
Mhm.
I'm saying is that it's yeah, yeah, it could definitely be both. See,
Yeah. And
that's
at
the
the end of the
problem.
day, it's a wetware problem, really, because
So,
people are going to make this mistake. Phishing is still by far
oh
the
yeah,
most successful hack out there, as
oh yeah.
simple as it is.
And that goes back to what I was saying about the banking. It's the same technique, it's just two different systems.
Mhm.
And so I always laugh at the first time Time Magazine did an online component of Man of the Year. Or no, Man of the Century. This was Man of the Century. So they were trying to find out the most influential person of the 20th century. Guess who won the online portion?
Oh God, I have no idea. I wouldn't even be able to guess.
Kemal Ataturk,
Really?
the founder of modern
Yeah.
Turkey. Why? Because a hacker set up an operation to spam the Time site. Now, of course, they didn't include it. They didn't name him as the online portion, but
Mhm.
he was overwhelmingly a contender for the overall title because some Turkish guys set up a, a system to flood the Time social media or the Time online presence. So, according to the online vote, the man of the century was Kemal Ataturk. And don't get me wrong, Kemal Ataturk did a lot of
Very
things.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. but he also carried out the Armenian genocide.
Right. Right.
But the point is, and you know, look at the early American Idol voting.
Mhm.
Again, a system which was fundamentally flawed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just don't think voting online is a good idea.
No, it's not safe. And the last thing I will say about the comparison to banking, because it is an obvious comparison, and it is the comparison people always make. I think it's illustrative in a couple ways. One is the one I already mentioned, but then the other one goes deeper than that. The
Okay.
other one goes towards our entire perspective on voting, and that's that everybody knows that banking apps get hacked sometimes.
Yeah.
They give you all this information about how to protect yourself, and obviously if they didn't get hacked, you wouldn't be need to worry about protecting yourself. A
Right.
certain amount of that is just taken for granted. We know it happens. Now
Yeah.
if you transfer that perspective to voting, where we all decide that a certain amount of votes are just going to be lost. That is completely different than the standpoint you mentioned earlier, and that's
Yeah.
the idea that even one vote lost is too many.
Yeah.
That we can't take that for granted. We never
Yeah.
should. And if we absorb that comparison to banking, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're assuming there's going to be a given amount of loss, and I think that's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible.
Given the importance of voting in modern societies, especially Western industrialized societies, it is the worst perspective you can possibly take.
Oh, it's so cynical.
Yeah, one person disenfranchised is too many,
Absolutely.
and that may seem like a radical idea. I don't care. In terms of, see, I think there ought to be on-site, in-person registration the day of elections.
Well, there is in Vermont, and I think 13 other states, I think.
Yes, I think that federal elections should be paid holidays.
Yeah,
If you're not going to do that, I think federal elections should happen on the weekends.
yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
Um, I am a radical when it comes to elections and opening voting. And you know what? I'm not sure I'm willing to go quite this far, but I'm close. When South Africa went to a more equitable society,
Hmm.
do you know what the minimum voter age was made?
16,
14.
14. Well, there are moves around the country to make it 16, and we have one town in Vermont that has. Again, this is just for
Yeah,
municipal elections,
local elections.
but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's I don't know. 14 is a bit much,
I
and
think 14 is a
16
little
I'm
bit.
open to, but I'm mixed
Well,
feelings, but I think I'm okay with it.
I'm open to 17.
Hmm.
And the reason why is both psychology and political science research shows that most people's political ideals are set in freaking concrete at
Huh.
17,
At least until they get old and they turn right wing, right?
or they get rich.
Or they get rich.
But see, the
Right
thing
on.
is, getting rich is not really it's not the ultimate turn to conservative politics you think it is. Because there are a lot of people who get rich, Warren Buffett, and then give it all away.
It's true. Or
And
at
so
least a lot of it. Well, no, he's giving all of it to
all of his fortune, the only thing he's leaving his kids is money for an education.
wow, I didn't realize it was that much. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
such a different scale than somebody like Bill Gates, who gives a ton of money to good causes, but
let's not
he's
talk
in no
about Bill.
danger of not being a billionaire.
Well, there are two people you got to talk about, and that's Jeff Bezos' wife, whose name I, or
Oh
ex
yeah, his wife. Yeah, given to all kinds of good causes.
we have to find her name. Uh, um, we have to give her credit and not call her Jeff freaking Bezos'
Yeah,
wife.
that's bad, isn't it? That's bad.
Yes,
We're
Mackenzie
defining
Scott.
her associate in her association to a man. What was the name?
Mackenzie Scott, she is giving away money right and left. And the last time she gave away $1 billion was when Elon Musk said, "These people are ruining society." And she went, "Oh, really? Here, $1 billion." Now, you're going to be surprised that the person who's given the most away to charity is a percentage of his fortune.
As a percentage of his fortune.
Yes.
Not Buffett. How could it?
Nope. He's
Somebody
a
with a lot less money.
he's a conservative bugaboo.
Oh,
Who
great.
do they say runs all the Democratic Party stuff?
Uh, oh, a conservative bugaboo. I thought you meant it was a conservative. Well, they say Bill Gates does a lot.
George Soros.
Oh, of course, Soros.
Soros has given away $32 billion to charity.
Yeah,
And
he
what
is
kind
there.
of charities? Pro-democracy charities, which
Yeah,
is why the modern Republican,
worldwide.
yeah, worldwide, not just
Yeah,
in the US, all over the planet.
yeah,
This guy is a committed little d Democrat,
yeah.
and he's a billionaire, a big time billionaire.
Mhm.
But, the point is, uh, it just one message for the listeners. Elections are safe.
But
Stop.
we have to stay vigilant, is what
Oh,
I would
good
say.
Lord, yes. Oh no, you
Never,
can't.
never back down for a minute. But
Nope.
our election system is solid.
Oh, listen, you're much more likely to get struck to die from a meteor strike than you are to have your vote being stolen from you or
Mhm.
having somebody who's not franchised voting.
Mhm.
By the way, that's a lot more possible than you think. It's about 1 in 40,000 that you're going to die from a meteor strike, but that's because there are so many meteors out there, so many asteroids and bodies which can smash into the earth and kill people. But
Great.
just you have to
Thanks
put
for
this in
that.
perspective. Elections are safe, and people who tell you otherwise, at least in the United States, they are bald-faced
Yeah.
liars,
Yeah.
and they have an agenda which does not help you, which specifically hurts you and your political power.
Or they have utterly and completely drowned in the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that's right too.
Yeah.
But they are not interested in you having political power.
Yeah.
They are interested in taking it away from you, and we're both staunchly against that. Your vote is essential. And one
Yeah.
of the things that makes the vote essential is that it is a way to have political change without violence.
Yeah. Usually, not always
And
these days, right? And I
and
say that as
change
an election administrator.
didn't say
The
it was
my
possible.
my fellow election administrators
No,
getting but
I
anyways,
didn't.
that's a whole
I,
different story.
I didn't say it was inevitable. I said it was possible to
Right.
look at the election of 1932, fundamentally transformed American society for the better. It made it more equitable, made it more profitable, made it more democratic.
Hmm.
And since 1932, basically, except for a short period, 4 or 5 years after World War II, since then, the stated goal of the Republican Party has been to walk us back.
Yep.
And I'm partisan here, and I will take all the blows you want to give me. There is abundant, abundant empirical evidence that if you want the economy to be strong and you want society to be resilient, progressive is a better way than conservatism.
Yep.
It's just
What
out
makes it
there.
progressive? Part of the
And the
definition.
thing, I'm a progressive, but I'm telling you, I know enough about evidence-based argument to know when I will admit I'm wrong.
Hmm.
As an example, I think a liberal administration made massive mistakes that cost the country a great deal in pursuing the Vietnam War.
Well, yeah, there's a classic
Massive
example,
mistake,
huh?
and mostly Democratic policymakers involved,
Yeah.
from FDR all the way up to uh, Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
Big mistake, big, 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 big mistakes. So I'm not this kind of person who's going to sit here and tell you that progressives and liberals do everything right. Oh God, no. Most political parties have an abysmal record. But in the last 100 years, the evidence is there. Anyway,
Well,
uh,
I mean, this is another, like always, we could go on forever, but
yeah.
we've got a historical and technological conversation here we've had about election security, election suppression, and what makes a good election. So I think it's been an interesting conversation, maybe a little different than we usually do,
I just want
but
to make one.
we got some geeky stuff in there. We got historical geekiness. We got some hacking geekiness. So we're still on the right page.
I want to make one more point.
Oh, sure.
If you're not voting or you're being lazy about keeping up your voter registration, we have to make this point that democracy will succeed only if the average voter takes it seriously.
Right.
You have to be informed as to what's going on in politics and what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
That's your job.
And that's
Every
a big
single,
part of why it's breaking right now.
that's exactly right.
Hmm.
Uh, People have started to believe that argument started by the Communist Party that, well, you really shouldn't vote. It doesn't mean anything. If it meant something, they wouldn't let you do it.
Hmm.
That's people don't understand this. It's your job to be a good citizen. If you are not being a good citizen, keeping up with the news, making sure you keep your voting in every election, state, local, federal, all of them. If you're not doing any of that, shut up about how bad the system is. I don't want to hear it. You have responsibilities as a citizen of a democratic government. Oh, and by the way, don't tell me that we're a republic, not a democracy. A republic is a democracy.
Yeah, we are a Republican democracy. Let's put it
We
that
are
way.
a representative democracy,
Yeah.
which is a form of democracy. And if you don't believe me, go back and read the Greeks, the people who defined the word republic and
Yeah. There's
democracy.
a reason the book was called Democracy in America.
Oh, that's written by a foreigner. That's written by a French guy. Anyway,
All
uh,
right.
so I think but that's the thing. As a political scientist, it's my job to tell you guys, you have responsibilities too, and you have to follow them all of your life because if you don't, democracy will, and I might add, is right now breaking down.
And it's my job as an election administrator to make sure it's not a unholy mess when you get there.
Please. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I
We'll
think
see
we've
you all
covered it
next
all.
time.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.